Good evening and welcome to Writers on Writing. I'm your host, Dr. Brenda Greene, Executive Director of the Center for Black Literature at Medgar College and Director of the National Black Writers Conference. Writers on Writing comes to you every Sunday and gives you, our listening audience, an opportunity to hear writers from the African diaspora talk about their work, their lives, and their craft. I'm very, very pleased to have with me in the studio this evening the legendary hip hop artist Talib Kweli.
Oh, you're too kind.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for saying that, but I don't think I'm very kind. In fact, we're very, very excited to have you. And there's an interview you did with Paul Miller, and I love what he said about you. He said, Talib Kweli, which means student, is a term that takes one into the realm of abstract inquiry or, on the other hand, action. Talib Kweli is a hip-hop artist who's made his mark over the last 15-plus years as a wordsmith who melds astute observations of everyday life and a lyricism in the same vein as some of the best poets of the 20th century, Claude McKay, Paul Robeson, Langston Hughes, and even more recent activists like Linton Kwesi Johnson and Saul Williams.
Oh, he's definitely too kind.
Oh, no. I love it. If you remember many years ago, I said, I tried to get you to focus more on poetry rather than music, but you had a love for music. And just for our listening audience, Talib Kweli is, of course, my son. And I remember when you started in the business, and you started really more with poetry. You walked around with a book all the time.
Yeah, I did. I walked around with a book of poetry and rhymes because I didn't have access to the music. I always wanted to have the music from the time that I started. But, when you're a teenager, you're not around. Well, nowadays, because of the technology, teenagers can produce. You can get programs and, Logic and Pro Tools and Fruity Loops. Well, back then, you needed to have expensive equipment and a studio in order to make hip-hop beats. So, my early style, my style has been fairly consistent, but earlier in my career, my style was a lot more loquacious, a lot more wordy, because I was writing without music, and I was trying to fit the words to the music. And so you hear that in some of the early stuff. It helped me develop a style, though. It helped me develop the rap style that I can now access and use at will. But nowadays, because I do make music for a living, I'm way more interested in making sure that what I do marries the track properly. And I feel like I'm better at that, and I'm more experienced. But when I first started, that was something I had to learn immediately.
Right. And you talk about in your new album, Prisoner of Conscious, which is about to drop, you talk about how this album is more musical. You want to reflect on or share with us what was the motivation behind Prisoner of Conscious, that term, and then what's different about this album?
Prisoner of Conscious is not a term that I assigned to myself. It's something that, it's a play on words dealing with people's perception of me in this business. I don't feel like I'm particularly a prisoner of anything. Now, the album, because I named it that, I wanted people to focus on the musicality of what I do. I have a lot of people, like your man Paul, who comment on my lyricism and the content, and that's great. It's great that people love what I bring to the table lyrically, but I think sometimes it makes them either miss or not appreciate what I do musically as much. People wouldn't care what I had to say if the music wasn't correct. My actual job description is entertainer. If I can add content to it, that's gravy on top of the meat and potatoes, but the meat and potatoes is the entertainment. It's got to sound good, it's got to feel good. And I've worked with some of the best producers in the business, from Madlib to Jay Dilla to High Tech to Kanye West. That's part of the reason why I'm known for my music. As for this album, I think I made musical choices that were more reflective of my place in the world than they were of my place in hip-hop. So I didn't limit myself to, adding strings, or if I want to have a lot of guests, or, there were a lot of decisions that I made that I was just free about and didn't worry about whether or not people thought I was keeping it real.
Okay, can you elaborate on that? I know, for example, we have the South African influence, we have the Brazilian influence. Can you just share with us what are some of those influences? How is this album freer?
Well, I went to some producers who make straight ahead classic hip hop. Terrence Martin, Oh No, Symbolic One, RZA, E Jones. But I've been performing with a band last couple of years, so I
Which
had
I love.
oh, thank you. I had a band come in and play on top of it. Um, and we did go to Brazil, and I tweeted that I would love to work with Sarah George, and he came in and jumped on the record. Um, Miguel's on the record, Melanie Fiona's on the record. Um, and yeah, the sounds that I picked, certain songs like there's Favela Love, there's High Life, there's Come Here, things that I love musically, but I may have felt in the past don't necessarily work for a Talib Kweli album. Like Come Here is a real Motown, up tempo Motown vibe, um, and it's something similar to what me and High Tech did with Midnight Hour and Estelle a couple of years ago on our record. But I feel like I've been able to fit it into my brand better this time around.
Okay. Now, just going to those spaces, how can you say how those geographical spaces, how being in a different place, a different country, and if you think about hip hop more globally, how has that affected your music? How does that affect what you want to say and what you produce?
What goes hand in hand with the demise of the music business. Um, it's no longer conducive to focus on trying to get a record deal or just focus on America. The music exists in the air. It is the community. The music community is online. My son makes music, and he connects with people all over the world, not just in his neighborhood, through his SoundCloud page and his Tumblr and his Facebook. When I was his age, I had to get up and get on the train and go to Washington Square Park and actually see people in the flesh. Um, there's positives and negatives to the difference in the way we receive and participate in music. But one of the positives for my son's generation and for this generation is they're not beholden to the neighborhood they're in or where they're from. It can inform them and it should inform them, but they don't have to be limited to that.
Okay. So just going back to the whole idea around prisoner of conscious and the fact that you were really writing before, who are some of the people in the literary world who influenced you? Who are the people you were reading? Who are the people who impacted on your writing?
On my writing, the people who have had the biggest impact on my writing are not poets or fiction writers or novel writers. Have been historians, and the autobiography of Malcolm X or autobiographies really. Pimp by Iceberg Slim or the Miles Davis book that he did with Quincy Troop. These are books that really inspired me. And then later, when I was working at Inkiru Books, reading historical texts like Dr. Ben and John Henrik Clark and stuff like that, those things started finding their way into my music. Um, as far as the poetry, there's Toni Morrison and there's J. California Cooper and there's Edwige Danicott and even Octavia Butler that are the writers like that. I'm able to look at the poetry of how they write and the beauty of what they write, and employ it in what I do. But I think I'm more influenced by the information, the
The
factual
contemporary,
information. Yeah.
because I think you're one of the people I think you read more than most people I know. You read everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I do. Sometimes I feel like that. And sometimes I don't.
Okay. You once shared a book with me, the book by Malcolm Gladwell
Mm-hmm.
about the outliers, and
Mm-hmm.
actually two books,
Mm-hmm.
and the tipping point, and focused on what it takes to really become really do well at what you do. And you talk about the importance of craft. Can you describe for us like what your process is in writing, and what is your philosophy around, or your ideas around what it needs to become the kind of artist that you've become?
Mm, I every song is different. Every song has a different process, but and in my career, the process has changed from, like we were talking about earlier, writing a song or writing a rhyme and then trying to find music to it, to listening to a bunch of music. Now my process is just to surround myself with inspiration, to place myself in situations where I can be inspired. Whether it's having to go to Puerto Rico to start this album, or Brazil, or a studio with the right people. Things might jump in my head as I walk down the street. 2 lines here, 2 lines there, and I'll write them on my phone or something. But some of it at this point is like just a reflex. You know, there's times when I have to write a song for someone else, and I'm just knocking it out because I have to do it. Or there's times when I really have something to say. But the one thing that I think is consistent is that I'm always good at writing under pressure. When someone says we need to knock this out in 2 hours or have this done by tomorrow, that's when I feel like I do my best writing under pressure.
Okay. And you don't have to be by yourself. Are you the type of writer that?
Oh no, I can create a by myself zone, you know.
Okay.
When I'm with a bunch of people.
Right. You've been DJing a lot recently, and just interviewed someone who's a potential instructor here at Meg Rivers College, and he's just finished a dissertation on the hip-hop DJ as 21st century new media reader, writer, and literary critic. And I thought that was kind of an interesting concept to look at the hip-hop DJ and how that's become the new reader, writer, and literary critic. In your role as a DJ, what are you thinking about, and what do you think about that whole concept?
I don't get that concept. What do you I don't know what he was trying to say with that.
Okay. He interviewed a lot of hip-hop artists. Mm-hmm. And in interviewing the hip-hop artists, he realizes that the hip-hop artists, I guess, in one sense, are actually representing popular culture. So they are the ones who are the new readers and the writers and the critics about popular culture. And they are also, many of them are DJing.
Okay. Yeah, when it makes it specific to DJ, that's a reach to me. But I mean, if we're talking about hip-hop artists or people who make music, whether it's DJs or MCs or producers, I kind of get that a little bit. When I first started DJing, I have a natural love for music, and I know a lot about music. And I don't know if I was arrogant or if it's just a general arrogance when it comes to DJing. You get there and you feel like, oh, I want to play this song, and I want to play this, and I'm going to kill them with this. And when they hear this, then you learn quickly that it's not about you when you're DJing. It's about the audience. As an MC, it's way more about me. As a rapper, as a DJ, it's about the vibe of the room. So I could show up at a party and think I want to play something, and then the people are not moving to that. It allows me to be more accepting, more open, more understanding. Mm-hmm. It allows me to understand more clearly what makes people move to songs, and especially when you have to match songs. You could experience a high when you throw on a song and everyone says, oh, and they throw their hands in the air, and you're like, oh, man, like they really like that. And then you go right to the next song that you feel like makes sense, and they sit down.
That's right.
And that's one of the worst feelings. It's like, I had them, I lost them. And so when you start going through that, it starts to change the way you think. You start to realize it's about me servicing these people. I'm providing a service for them.
Right. Well, you kind of epitomized that. I think one of the songs on Prisoner Conscious is the last song. It only gets better. Mm-hmm. We're gonna listen to that and then kind of get your take, your background on that. So it only gets better. That's track 15.
Yes, last track. Yeah.
Hands in the air, everybody. Hey, yeah. Lord knows I had it hard today. Still I gotta keep my head up high along the way. 'Cause it only gets better. It only gets better from here. It only gets better. It only gets better from here. Every day I gotta wake up early, let us pray. Thank the Lord, meditate, get the truth, hit the booth, spit it true, spit it great, practicing my gratitude. Life is so beautiful, working on the attitude, and just because it only gets better, it only gets better from here. It only gets better, it only gets better from here. Every day I gotta trust God and hustle hard. My grind is real, my hustle go. I'm finding meals, I'm signing deals, I'm a gladiator, I'm like Russell Crowe. No one knows it's real, but I'm focused still. While you focus,
shaky like Cloverfield. Cause you're not attuned, no, you're not immune. No echinacea, no golden seal. So you sick inside, gotta flush it out. When you talk to folks, cover your mouth. But ain't nobody gonna cover that shift. So you go to work, and you tough it out, and you bust it out. Till you off to work. I know your boss a jerk, you wanna cuss him out. Hit him with the bus driver uppercut. That clock's the only thing you punching out. I relate to you, gotta pay your dues. When the time's right, you gotta make a move. Your job is what you get paid to do. Your calling's what you made to do. I got faith in you, you gon' make it through. Cause you don't chase money, money chasing you. Keep laboring like you got a baby do. You gon' taste those fruits like naked juice. Whoa, the world won't wait for you. You gotta take it now, you gotta make it vow. As long as you want planet Earth, put family first, gotta make you proud. Hey, let me break it down, Oh, bless your heart. Steady talking about how blessed you are. She be talking about how blessed you are, yeah.
Lord knows I had it hard today. Still I gotta keep my head high. Along the way. It only gets better. It only gets better from here. It only gets better. It only gets better from here. Yeah, I gotta get up early, wake the kids, get up running late again. Go to work, punching in. Every day I'm hustling, like the traffic knows my cool. Pick the kids up back to school. Life is hard, yeah, that's true. This is what it only gets better. It only gets better from here. It only gets better. It only gets better from here. Every day I gotta
Walk with God, be still, then listen. Try to talk to God, but it's real. I'm spitting, calling Christ by name, and he still ain't risen. Set them a link, but he still ain't listen. Got ice in the veins when you made so frigid. Still in the kill brain cells when you hit it. Or the pills when you pop that, pop that, pop that. Don't stop, get it started. We the fighters, we survivors, but we ain't living. My soul is blacker than the Friday after Thanksgiving. People of color, 25% more likely than whites to face prison. But just because the president is black, there's no more racism. Most racial. More like most racial, the hate for you disgraceful. Don't let it take you off your base, let it motivate you. Don't let it overtake you. So what another cloud survived the storm, but riding on the beast of the southern wild. Wow.
Lord knows I had it hard today.
Lord knows.
Still I gotta keep my head high. Along the way. Because it only gets better. It only gets better from here. It only gets better. It only gets better from here.
Every day I got it.
Every day I
Memories
gotta-
live, man, and my memories stay alive. Yeah. Shout out Asada Shakur, Nahanda Abiodun. Yeah. Rest in peace, Troy Davis. Rest in peace, Geronimo Pratt. Yeah. One love to Nasreen Sotoudeh. One love to Leonard Peltier. Come on. Prisoner of conscience, man. Whenever life bring me down, I think about those freedom fighters. Those who put their life on the line. Those who get jailed for their thoughts. Like Terrell and Bosnia. Put in jail for organizing a protest on Facebook. Like Mumia Abu Jamal. What up, Mumia? Prisoner of conscience, man. Free pussy riot.
Lord knows I had it hard today. Still I gotta keep my head up high. Along the way. 'Cause it only gets better. It only gets better from here. It only gets better. It only gets better from here.
Every day I got it.
Okay, thank you. You know, every time I hear you say that, I think about It Only Gets Better, and I think back to your album, The Beautiful Struggle. I'm always quoting. I said, we have a struggle, but it's a beautiful struggle, and it only gets better. And when things get down, you know, we're surviving, and then when things get down, we have to remember those freedom fighters. You know. What
Yeah,
was that?
definitely. I have to thank J. Cole who made that track. He wrote the hook. He's singing on it a little bit. So I wrote that song with him.
Okay. Wow. It always sends chills through me. Just going back, because I think we're about to close, when you look at what's happening today with respect to the people like Lil Wayne and his comment on Emmett Till and JayZ and Cuba, do you think writers or hip hop artists have a social responsibility?
I think people have a social responsibility. Human beings have a social responsibility. I don't think that it's the job of an artist to be socially responsible. I don't think it's a job of an artist to raise your kids for you, to send positive messages, to uplift the community. That's not in the description of being an artist at all. It's nice when artists are like that. But that's not the description. The only job that an artist has is to be honest in their craft. That's it. The best artists, and certainly the artists that I gravitate to more, are the ones who do more than what's described, who do more than what we're here to do, who paint pictures of a brighter future, who inject hope, who talk about uplifting the community. Like, that's the type of art that I enjoy. That's the type of art that I like to associate myself with and be around. But I think it's a mistake to insist that all art does that. Because then we're just being music snobs or art Nazis, or we're just being very judgmental, and we're becoming guilty of the same things that we're criticizing when we're saying that you must listen to this artist, or if this artist says this lyric, then their contribution to the culture is no longer valuable. I think those are sweeping indictments and arrogant statements to make for us as consumers, when we all have contradictions and we all have our own demons. Artists are not exempt from being human.
Okay, well, part of what we're doing now is we have a lot of hip hop being used in the classrooms. We have people doing dissertations on hip hop. We even had people doing dissertations on Mos Def and Talib or Black Star. It was so. How do we use hip hop in the classroom, or what value do you see in doing that? And then I also did want you to comment on, give your thoughts on how you thought JayZ responded to the criticism around going to Cuba, the president's criticism.
I think that
and the Emmett Till.
Oh, okay.
Art.
I think that I'm glad to hear that people are doing academic work around music that I've made, or music that Mos Def has made. I'm always a fan of supporting what I like rather than demonizing or attacking what I don't like. And I think it's way more solution based. I'm just smarter strategically to, if you want to combat negativity in hip hop, or you want to deal with hip hop on a balanced way, to uplift and promote and support the artists that you feel like are speaking to the community. I think that's the only way to do it. It doesn't make sense to go after artists that you think are saying something negative. They're just expressing themselves. I'd rather them express themselves negatively through music than in real life, in the street, or with their loved ones. And I think that people can get, an artist's responsibility is to respond like an artist. So I think JayZ's response was perfect. JayZ is not a politician, for a good reason. He's an artist. And so he shouldn't be beholden to the same rules and the same judgments or same standards that we hold politicians to. His response, he responded by making a song about how he was on the beach in Cuba with a cigar, and I think that was the perfect response for him. I think Obama's response was perfect at the correspondence dinner, when he walked out to "All I Do Is Win, Win, Win," and said that he has 99 problems and JayZ is one. I think that he's, Obama is in his last term, so he's like, he's kind of saying what he wants now. But I think that response is perfect, and I think that I'm pleased with Lil Wayne and his apology. As people know, I work with Lil Wayne. I'm friendly with, and I'm cool with his whole crew. Mac Main, who's the president of Young Money Records, is one of my good friends. Lil Wayne is a grown man. I don't want him to apologize for me. I didn't want him to apologize for me. I wanted him to apologize if that's what he truly felt like he wanted him to do. And I feel like from the apology that I read today, that's what he wanted to do. I just think that sometimes when you're an artist as big as him, you get isolated, and you're around. Right. You're around people who are not maybe keeping you aware of how the things you're saying are affecting the community, affecting people. I think it took some time for that effect to bounce back to him.
Sure, just provide the context for what he did, or what Lil Wayne did, and what he ended up apologizing for.
He had a lyric that basically was was on a song by Future, a Karate Chop remix, where he talked about beating the P up like it was Emmett Till. And the context for that is, you know, in hip hop artists have been making metaphors about beating the P up for quite some time, and no one's had an issue with it. Lil Wayne himself had a whole song about beating it up like Rodney King a couple years ago. That was mainstream radio, and no one had an issue with it. I think it became an issue when the Till family, who are outside of the world of hip hop, caught wind of him using Emmett Till's name in such a manner. And I think my opinion on whether or not I think in the context of hip hop, Lil Wayne saying that makes sense. But the responsibility for that lyric offending the Till family, we can't just rest it on Lil Wayne's shoulder. That responsibility is on all of us. It's on all of us who do hip hop. It's on all of us who go to the club or listen to the record by YG, beat the P up. And I DJ. I've seen grown, middle class black women literally with heels on to jump on top of a table or top of a couch when that record comes on. And so we can't just, when it's a problem, say, oh, it's Lil Wayne's fault, he should have said that. We've created and participated in a context where it's cool to have all types of metaphors for beating a woman's private part up. So I have an issue with even that phrasing. Mm-hmm. And so when the Till family took Lil Wayne to task for it, I think that's what they should have done. And I don't think he owes anybody an apology but them. And I think it's his right to not apologize. It was his right to say, I'm an artist. I didn't mean anything by it, but I'm an artist. It wasn't, but I think he went a step further and stood up.
Okay. We are coming to a close. What message do you have for those people who are aspiring to be hip-hop artists and for our students at Medgar Evers College?
Do it yourself. The world is open to you. There's nothing to stop you from doing it, and you have to focus on what it is that you do well and create your niche. And when you do that, whole worlds will open up. If you become good at what it is you do, it'll create platforms for you to do other things. Don't try to do everything now at once.
All right. And in terms of the craft of it.
Yeah, the craft is everything. The craft is everything. MCing itself, the craft of MCing is standing on a stage in front of people. It's done in the flesh. It's not done on a blog. It's not done on a video or on a CD. So you have to practice your craft.
Okay. Thank you, Talib.
Thank you.
We have been talking with Talib Kweli, as I said at the beginning, the legendary hip-hop artist. He has a new album, Prisoner of Conscious, not Consciousness, Prisoner of Conscious. And you have been listening to Writers on Writing. Please go out and pick up the album. You can get it on...
You can get it on iTunes and Amazon.com, or you can go to Best Buy, or my suggestion would be to support a mom and pop record store if you can find one, because there's not many. But if you happen to know one, try supporting them first. And if not, then go to Best Buy.
Right. And remember, in the music business, as in the book publishing business, we have to support our artists. We don't have the record stores and the labels anymore, so you have to support them by going out and purchasing their work. And it's important to do that as soon as it comes out.
Right. Or else you forfeit your right to complain about music on the radio.
Exactly. Okay, remember, the writer's always reading, the reader's always writing. Keep reading and writing. Empower yourselves as readers and writers. Write us at writers@mec.cuny.edu. I want to thank my engineer, Fritz Richardson, for always being there. I want to thank Tanya Collins, the director of the television studio. And I want to thank all of those who continue to listen to us. Please come back next week. We are going out with, I'm not sure what we're going out with. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
Song written by Langston Hughes. I'm sure most of you have heard of Langston Hughes. And he wrote a poem about rivers. And we call this song, I've Known Rivers.
Rivers I have seen and rivers I have known, ancient than the world.